when you leave your corporate job to start a company, you don't have an IT department to go fix your DNS record. We have to really understand that there's going to be this level of learning. It's really hard if you come at a business without a sales background. So you're trying to learn product development, you're trying to learn sales and marketing, you're trying to learn operation. Coming from a bigger company, they already have all those departments. You're just consuming information, and it's easy to get lost in that information.
I am somebody who really likes to succeed. I have a lot of grit and determination, but I don't like to do things wrong. And I think that has been a big wake-up call for me that, part of founding is failing. And it's easier to say than to feel, because when you're failing, there's nobody there to kind of catch you if you're a solo founder, and which in my case, finding a way through that perfectionism, and your product doesn't have to be perfect, or it's normal to fail.
Stacey, thanks for joining me today. Yeah. We've known each other almost 2 years, maybe, or so, and I'm following your journey and in the company that you're trying to create and get going. And you reached out to me a couple weeks ago and asked some really good questions around all things in what I would call 0 to 1, getting from nothing and making your first steps into really starting and launching and scaling your business. And it made me kind of look at it from this perspective of maybe I'm not thinking of it from your perspective, because I've got 25-ish years of starting and launching companies that now some things kind of come naturally to me. And your questions really kind of opened up a little bit better perspective from, as I do my customer discovery, it really helped me and kind of gave me a vision. So I was like, let's do this on a podcast instead of kind of typing it back and forth and sharing some voice text back and forth. So quickly, just, tell everybody a little bit about your background and the kind of the idea stage of what you're in, maybe what you've tried, and let's kind of start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is actually small farm town in Indiana, middle of nowhere, grew up rodeoing, 4-H'er for 10 years, and then ended up with an opportunity to go to Babson College out on the East Coast, which is the #1 school for entrepreneurship. And that kind of started my journey of just entrepreneurship in general, but also kind of the East Coast and the pace of the East Coast. And after graduating, found myself in New York City and with some really exciting consumer product companies. And I feel like once you get into CPG and consumer products, it's you just kind of become a little bit addicted. The process is so exciting, so exhilarating, wholesale partnerships, and just so many challenges of getting the product that you want to your consumer. So I was lucky enough to be with kind of 3 unicorns. So I was with Aiden and A, which specializes in high-end baby products, and then kind of a rare gem of being with Casper, the mattress startup. Yep. So I was with them very early and got to see their journey all the way through to an IPO. So really boots on the ground, those early days.
When did you start at Casper? What employee were you, or how early?
I was early. I'll say I was employee maybe 15. I was definitely early days. So we were just launching. We were still in the first month of sales. We were monitoring our very early kind of Excel and early day dashboards and just watching those sales come in. We only had the mattress at that point. We hadn't even dreamt up kind of pillows and sheets and some of the other products that would come. We were still in a 2-bedroom apartment on Bond Street in New York. So yeah, the founders were just absolutely incredible, and just an amazing journey there, and really kind of ignited my passion for consumer product. And then I was recruited to Enjoy, which was the largest private vaping company, which gave me a complete different taste, right? That gave me a chance to see kind of a regulated industry and what that looked like. And we were positioning ourselves, and then eventually were acquired by Altria. So we were positioning ourselves for an acquisition. So it was really nice to see an IPO and then an acquisition. But with all that experience in New York under consumer products, it ignited my passion for wanting to build my own startup in the consumer product space. And, part of our conversation, I think, over email was just, you kind of get really lucky in those opportunities for many, many reasons. I had a lot of luck on my side. But one of those is that when they are hiring people, they have the funds to be hiring you, which means they've got resources that you don't have when you're striking out on your own, especially in those early days. And, I was thinking about our journey to meeting each other. And so we met, I believe this is my recollection, because I saw you on an episode of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is the only guy I know building physical product in Nashville. So I blindly reached out to you on LinkedIn, and you were so kind to take my call. And I think we, got coffee, and like you said, I've known each other for a couple of years now. But that was a really great lesson too, in that people are really willing to help if you ask. And I think part of the challenge is making sure you're asking the right questions and kind of putting that to work. But you've been a great resource, and I'm super excited to
let's
talk
start
more about it.
You talked about kind of being in that 15 number at Casper. And I want to go from that point backwards and help other entrepreneurs who are in that stage or just starting out. Because I think from a context perspective, the scalability stuff that maybe and have experience in is really going to be your secret weapon later in your business. But we got to really unpack that kind of that 0 to 1 state right now, right? And I think that's where most of the people that I work with are in that early stage. And for sake of today's conversation, I kind of want to box it around. Let's kind of keep our conversation related to direct-to-consumer physical products that have to be designed, manufactured, and delivered to a user, right?
Yes.
So we're going to kind of, for today, we're going to cut out B2B businesses, and we're going to cut out kind of B to government and B business to school kind of type of sales channels and startup tactics. This is all about how to kind of build an awareness and a product or a service that would be delivered to a customer, like a physical product. So you've got some really good questions that I want to kind of unpack today. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about this identity, right? That we all carry. I'm guilty of carrying this. When we work for corporations or bigger entities, let's call it more than 15 people, we have access and privy to other resources, and you kind of alluded to it. They'd already kind of raised a round of funding, and as you're starting out in a business, you don't have that, right? And a lot of times people put their self-identity in whatever corporate ladder they're climbing, and rightfully they deserve to get to that point. And when they leave that, they bring that identity into their startup without those resources. And you really have to understand that when you leave your corporate job to start a company, you don't have an IT department to go fix your DNS record or your pixel as it connected to your website correctly. Like, you've got to go and figure that out. And a lot of times I work with, I'm calling them corporate ladder founders. They don't comprehend that level of problem solving, and they're good at solving everyone's problems, and they know who to go to within their organization to solve those problems, but they're not good at solving the problem and actually getting in and solving that problem. So we have to really understand that there's going to be this level of learning and a steep learning curve and things that you have no business knowing in starting your business. And it's really hard if you come at a business without a sales background. So you're trying to learn product development, right? You're trying to learn sales and marketing. You're trying to learn operations. You're trying to learn legal. And coming from a bigger company, they already have all those departments, right? And you're just consuming information, and it's easy to get lost in that information.
I absolutely agree that the confusion, certainly. And the other thing I think I've struggled with, as I'm sure a lot of founders are type A and perfectionists, is when you talk about that corporate ladder, like you said, there's really clear identifiers to say, hey, I'm doing this right, I'm doing a good job. I'm learning, I'm growing. You know, you're getting the promotion, the title change, the raise, you're building your team, things like that. When you strike out on your own, it's a lot of failure. And I think for me, that's definitely been a challenge. I am somebody who really likes to succeed. I have a lot of grit and determination, but I don't like to do things wrong. And I think that has been a big wake-up call for me, that, you know, part of founding is failing. And it's easier to say than to feel, because when you're failing, there's nobody there to kind of catch you if you're a solo founder, and which in my case I am, or working to become one. So I think that finding a way through that perfectionism, and your product doesn't have to be perfect, or it's normal to fail, or it's normal to try these different avenues, or it's common to take several years. I think, myself included, we kind of get into these idealized narratives of, oh, they started the business and it took off in a year, or, you know, in under 3 years, I can't remember which consumer product I was just reading, in under 3 years, you know, just exploded. And I think we have these very fairy tale narratives that we think we should be achieving, because if we were smart, right, or if we were doing a good job, or we would be achieving those.
Yeah, the headlines are all rainbows.
Yeah.
And what you don't see in the news and the headlines is all of the sleepless nights and all of the uncertain decisions that you have to make, and all of the failure points that got those unicorns to the position that they're in. And it is a false indicator that people have or fantasize about entrepreneurship, and as they're coming out of a corporate history or corporate culture or some sort of background, they've kind of established themselves, and then they have to come and start over from nothing.
Yeah.
And one thing I look at is like identifying what are those baggages that you're going to be carrying, and understanding, okay, I've got to understand that I've got to launch. You got to be able to and see those baggages from a perspective of, is this me being perfectionist? Is this me, am I wasting time in consuming and not creating? Am I trying to build consensus? Because a lot of times in corporations, you have to build consensus to make a decision, right? And that's natural in corporations. In startups, the only consensus is you and the market.
Yeah.
Right? So you spend a lot of time up here trying to build consensus before you push something out to the market. When I try to go back and go, okay, how do we cut through that really fast? Let's push to the market and let the market tell us if we're heading in the right direction or not. So it puts you into this failure mode, and this publish mode that will expose you to failure or ridicule or trolls or whatever else out there that are going to say you can't do this, or it's never been done like that, or whatever. And you have to kind of take that in and it's okay, and keep iterating, right? And keep publishing. So understanding what those baggages are that you might be carrying into that, and kind of going, okay, I've got to let go of all that, and I just have to get things out.
Yeah. And
when I was come from a very similar situation, I was working for the state government and had a full-time day job, and I remember reaching out to some tech blog writers about the product that we were trying to create, and it was all comfortable until they actually published. And that article went on TechCrunch and got on the front cover of TechCrunch for almost 2 days. Wow. And I started to see this flood of comments.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going, oh God, this is real. Because in my day job, I was protected and shielded from a lot of that, right? And then now I'm reading a comment on TechCrunch that's like, who are these guys' publicists? They should be fired. And I'm like, well, that was kind of me. I wrote that.
I was the one writing that.
Right. Like, look at these guys' website. It looks like it was built with a crayon, right? And I'm like, I kind of built that website.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And it puts you out there in this but you can't stop there. And then immediately it's like, okay, those are challenges or things we're going to have to fix. And you just start patching, and you just start, and you do it in an ugly way. and you've got to put down like do it dirty. Like you just got to get out there and start doing things. So letting go of that baggage is probably the first thing you've got to, if you've been in a career for more than say 8 years, and you've been in a company with more than 10 or 15 people, then you're going to be carrying that baggage.
Yeah. So and my running joke right now is like, I can't wait to get to the point where people are criticizing me, because then people would actually be paying attention. Like right now,
okay, let's start
not even
there.
To the level of getting to the criticism. It's all self-criticism.
Okay,
right
let's
now.
Start there. You've got some really good questions, and I want to kind of unpack those from the lens of direct-to-consumer product-based companies. So do you want to start asking the questions and we'll just kind of start going from there?
Yeah, let's dive in. So I think my first one is just around costs. I think that there's so much misinformation that's out there around costs. So I'd really love to kind of break down, what do you really need to have in savings in order to start a direct-to-consumer company? And obviously it's going to vary based off of the size of your product and the complexity of your product. But I think just some general numbers would also be really helpful. I think one of the challenges people are continuously facing, including now, even in the time since I was at Casper, when we talk about customer acquisition costs, it has changed massively. We're seeing, very public builds on social media and these mass followings and stuff, but it's so saturated. It's hard to break through the noise.
Totally.
It's hard to gain real followers that really do care about your business. And even as a consumer of social media, I feel like it's so flooded. And obviously social media isn't the only marketing channel, which is even actually another strike against you, right? Because you've got SEO and you've got PR, which you mentioned, you've got so many different channels within the marketing sector. So I think having a baseline, let's just for hypothetical sake, let's say the product is $50 retail. Okay. And let's say, for simplicity's sake again, that it costs you $25 to make. Okay. What are you really looking at? Is a 50% margin enough, for one? And for two, what do you really need to have in the bank to source your product, to have it shipped if it's coming from overseas? Let's say you're air freighting. There's a lot of variables, obviously, but I'd love to talk through, what does it really cost to build a startup?
You touched on something I think we got to go back to and really drill in on. You said, how much do I have to have in savings? Okay. If you can't, in your day job and in your lifestyle that you're living, if you can't manage a checkbook to where you're putting away money into savings, you'll never be able to manage a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet. Okay. So first you have to understand you've got to be setting aside something in your day job to pursue your dream job financially. Yeah. Right. And it sounds like you're doing that. It sounds like that, just based on you skimming over that, it's an indicator to me saying that you're thinking about savings. Okay. So when I was first starting out, I was in this like massive, the business that actually got somewhere. I was, for the 4 years or so before that, I was doing all kinds of like testing out entrepreneurship in a safe way. I was working full time, but I was trying to test different ideas. I'd created some entities, I'd created some partnerships, I'd created some products and things. And it was all kind of in a testing, learning perspective, all while I was consuming every article, every podcast, every book I could get my hands on about all things leadership and business. Simultaneously starting a family and having kids and having to set aside some money into an account that's like, basically, this is my dream job account. So I started, and instead of creating a savings, I created a Robinhood account and started and putting some money into some stocks. And ultimately, those stocks became my first $10,000 into starting the company. Now, I didn't immediately put all 10 into the company. I would pull money as needed into things that we needed. So back then, this was 2014, we put a lot of emphasis on prototyping, engineering. That was probably the bulk of the spend. And my business partner did the same thing. He put in about the same. We did. We evenly matched. So kind of in the early days, I would put in $750 and he would put in $750, and he would put in 1,000 and I'd put in 1,000. We just kind of kept a running ledger of how much money we were putting into the business. And at the very beginning, it was mostly all around engineering and prototyping, 3D printing, and we started to put a little bit of emphasis around capturing that moment. And we hired a videographer.
Wow.
Right out of that, this is kind of put yourself back to 2014. Yes, we had camera phones back then, but there's a lot of tools now exist that make it a lot easier. Right. But we just started capturing our progress. Let's see, we spent some money on the legal formation, and I think I see a lot of times, and I've made this mistake where companies will go hire an attorney and go file like a Delaware company right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And yes, that's ultimately a decision. I think for the right company, a Delaware Corp might be the right decision. But you've got to think through, there's a lot of complexities that are unnecessary in that zero space when an LLC would just suffice, right? So previously with some other companies, I'd set up a Delaware company and have, stock structures and $10,000 in legal fees. No, that's not how I would recommend doing it. Now I would recommend just getting an EIN, setting up a simple single member LLC, and get going. You can always change up to a Delaware or C Corp or S Corp, whatever, Nevada Corp later. But for always, just file your Secretary of State filing, $300 something. Make sure you're filed in your city and county. There's like $15 or so, depending on the city and the county. And just get the formation formed, the articles of organization. And so don't spend a lot of money there. But most of it is going to go into product. And that means sometimes sampling, like getting samples made from whatever factory source that you're going to be getting them from. Yeah. And that's probably where I'm going to put most of the emphasis. And then once I get those samples to a point that I'm like 70% okay with,
I'm going to pause there. How much did you guys end up spending on just the, I'll say, designer/engineer? Because before overall, you can even sample, right, you've got to have somebody who's kind of designing this. Or was that something you and your partner were doing?
At the very beginning, we ultimately spent hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars.
Sure, but getting started,
but at the very beginning, let's say pre Kickstarter. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's put the timeline to this. We came up with the idea April 1st, 2014. I remember walking into Lowe's and looking on the shelves of every lock company in Lowe's. And we bought a threshold. We spent like $15 on a threshold. And we put that that was the first thing, the first action that we took. And it was at April Fool's Day 2014. I think I still have a picture of the receipt. Then to put a timeline on this, we launched on Kickstarter September 24th later that year.
Wow.
So from April to September. Time. So let's start and let's kind of cap it within that time frame. Collectively, we spent about $20,000 on a really good polished Kickstarter video. We formed the company, articles of organization. We and the bulk of it was spent in prototyping, and in early renderings, engineering drawings. We built a model out of aluminum, and ultimately that was the prototype that we launched into market. And when we talk about getting on TechCrunch and all these other things, I would send them renderings of what we did. And back then, the rendering cost and the engineering cost were way higher than they are now because we have AI to use at our disposal where we can get kind of close with the rendering.
Right.
Enough where you can start doing some customer discovery. So in those 9 months, out of that $20,000, I would say probably 15 or 14 of it was all in developing the product. And we did not even have one ready to make and sell. It was just kind of getting to a good functioning prototype. It had an Arduino board in it. We connect that to an app, and we had the physical device that ultimately became the product that we sold.
So this is 20,000. This is pre-product, pre-anything. And I think it's interesting that you point out that, now renderings are cheaper, which I would agree with. There's some tools that make that less expensive. But I would say on the flip side, right, kind of like we were talking about, CAC has gone up a lot as an example. Markets like Kickstarter are also hyper saturated now. Yep. Yes. It's
and they were
really
back
hard.
Then.
Would you even advise somebody to go through that path these days?
Absolutely. It forces you to what I call create a campaign. And in those 9 months, we set a target release date of September 24th. And we said, we're going to do, and in everything between my business partner and I, and we had a few other people at that time that we were kind of courting as like partners, founders. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. Some of them we paid in equity later. Some of them we paid for fee for service. But we were like, September 24th is the go live date. And we've got to force ourselves to hit publish on Kickstarter on 8:00 on September 24th.
I love that.
So what do we need to do to work backwards on that date? And there's no reason that September 24th is not going to happen. We're going to hit live, no matter what it looks like, no matter how ugly.
Yeah.
No matter. So we
did
just
you
started.
guys use an agency with Kickstarter, or you just
did it all on our own?
Yeah. And to give people an idea, as somebody who has recently, I'll say within the last 12 to 18 months, so it's probably gone up even since then. Basic agency quote, I think I quoted 3 of them. They were all around $25,000 to $30,000. So
there's a lot that goes into it, and if you want to do it right, there's a PR strategy, and there's not just the visuals and the structure of the offer, and knowing that now, I get why they would charge that. We did it all on our own, not even knowing those agencies exist.
Yeah.
We just like, what's it going to take to launch a successful campaign? So we started kind of working backwards, writing out all the copy and getting all the imagery ready, creating the video. And if you go to Kickstarter right now, you could probably type in Haven Lock Kickstarter and you could find the old listing. But it doesn't have to be Kickstarter. But I'm saying force yourself into a no out go live.
I love the idea of a no out, go live. Absolutely. But I think this brings up a question that happens very, very frequently in your 0 to 1 period, or it is for me, which is, how do you know which path?
So channel.
In this case, no, not even to channels yet. So in this case, we're talking about Kickstarter, right? $30,000 is a no start for a lot of people, because that's $30,000. That's not your marketing budget. That, granted, there is some marketing in there, right? But that's not your marketing budget. That's not your physical inventory. That's not shipping. That's not fulfillment. That's none of those pieces. And so the 2 paths in this case, right, are figuring it out yourself or hiring an agency. But you know this as well as I do. If you are on Kickstarter or another similar platform, there's so many people who have done it themselves and it looks really polished and they're not getting a dime. And I think there's this inflection point continuously. You talked about incorporating in some of the legal stuff. There are so many platforms that allow you either to do it yourself or to pay to have it done. And let's say the difference is $1,000. And then you're right at that inflection point again. Is it like, okay, can I chat GPT and Google this enough to set it up myself correctly? Or is it worth just spending the $1,000? And there are so many of these inflection points in the 0 to 1. And it's really difficult, I think, to make the right call. And Kickstarter, 11 years ago, whether that's the cost or the effectiveness, I feel like it's so different. Just like we were talking about social media 11 years ago is, night and day. So I'm curious on how you guys thought about where to invest your elbow grease versus where to invest your capital.
Good point. That's a good question. I think now I coach more established entrepreneurs or founders, like, how much is your time worth? Is your time worth $100 an hour? Is it worth $500 an hour? Is it worth $1,000 an hour? Mm-hmm. And if it's going to take you, first identifying what is your time worth, and that's a mental number that you keep up here in your head. You don't have to tell anybody about it, right? And as you start to make those decisions, whether should I learn and do this on my own, or should I hire this out and delegate this to somebody who can do it much faster and cheaper than I can, because my time is worth, say, $500 an hour, and they're charging me $500 an hour. but they can do it 3 times faster than me and get 3 times done faster. That's the better decision, right? So when it came to like deciding, like I didn't know how to program an Arduino board. So we hired that out, right? I didn't know how to get into CAD and draw up renderings and CAD files. So we hired Brian, and Brian did it. And but I did know how, I think I did know how back then to write copy. So I didn't hire a copywriter. I had most of my background was in sales. So I knew how to create kind of a sales funnel and pipeline and pricing strategy. And I knew how to run campaigns because I'd came from radio sales where we would always kind of dream up these campaigns to try to get advertisers to support.
Okay.
So that helped us. Alex had a lot of other experience, financial, like just financial acumen, business acumen, military experience, and leadership experience. And we kind of complemented each other. And I definitely think having a co-founder can be a benefit. Be careful how you pick that co-founder and make sure that you have complementary backgrounds and experiences and networks and
Skill
like
sets,
right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I kind of like back then it was like, Alex, do you know how to do this? No, I don't know how to do it. Well, let's find somebody. So who's in our network?
Yeah.
We found Brian on Upwork, and he lived in Cookeville, like
Nice.
and we drove over and met him at an Applebee's or a Ruby Tuesdays, and we like vomited all of our ideas on this young engineer right out of college.
I love that.
And we didn't know how to do it, so that's how we found that skill set, and that's still how I do it today. I'm pretty much a solo entrepreneur in most cases, and if there's something I just don't know how to do, or it falls above that threshold of my hourly expectation, then I'll go and either out to my network of somebody I've hired before or Upwork or wherever, or ask a mentor or advisor, hey, who do you know that does this specifically, right? And you kind of have to understand that like setting that go live date, there's no compromise, and it's going to get published, and it might not look the way you want it. It might not be, the imagery might not be perfect. The brand might not be to your standard. The product's not going to be to your standard, but pushing it out. Another thing that we did, I think is super important, is we built up momentum going into that. And I'll talk a little bit about that launch date. So as we started getting some renderings back, we started hosting neighborhood meetups around crime. So in my neighborhood, Alex's neighborhood, we would go and anybody like, hey, there's a break-in occurred over in this other neighborhood, and let's just get together and have some beer and wine and chat about it at the clubhouse in the neighborhood, right? So we would bring together people who were experiencing the problem, and that was almost like a curated concentration, like focus group,
Right.
And people were throwing out, well, we should get cameras, and we should do this, and we should do that, and we should maybe invest our HOA money into hiring a security guard. Well, what about if we all improved our locks? And then you would like show it on your phone, like, this is what I'm designing.
What about this?
Or I had the prototype, a couple of these later on, I'd had the prototype. This is what I'm building. And people were like, well, can it do this? Can it do that? Could I share digital keys with my family? Could I get a notice when somebody comes and goes? Well, yeah. It can work with an app, and yeah, it can work with your Alexa. And all of that's kind of theoretical. We got to go build it, but it guided us on how to sell it. And we started collecting email addresses, all while we're doing that. Then I find myself taking meetings, coffee shops, wherever around town. And as while I'm standing in line buying coffee, I find myself pitching somebody next to me with my phone going, hey, I'm designing this. You look like somebody that's kind of my target customer. Like break-ins happen every 13 seconds. Like, would you put this something? Somebody, no way, I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't put it. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, they would tell you why not. Okay, then now that's an objection, a hurdle that I have to overcome. right? I've got to come up with a rebuttal to that in my marketing message, in my design of my Kickstarter at that point, and later on my website and every outbound marketing. But those rebuttals that's indicators to tell me why people won't buy. We started just doing anything we could do around customer discovery and collecting email addresses. And then we had a launch party, and we invited anybody with a heartbeat. We rented the main room at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, had beer and barbecue, and basically said, if we've talked to you, if you've met us in the last any time in our lives, our friends, family, people that we had met recently, we're going to show you our Kickstarter campaign, and we're going to feed you free beer and barbecue. And we had, 100-ish people show up that day. And that next day, we hit go live and launch, and those people went and backed it. And that kickstarted the algorithm, right? So what I'm saying is we had some pent up interest in that specific campaign to make it successful. I do it now, and if I'm launching a new product, I do it now if I'm launching a new a Christmas campaign or for like a product that I have. I will have affiliates or content creators already lined up with content already created, so that when I push out a campaign, it's got the momentum behind it and can kickstart whatever algorithm that, like if I'm on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, it can start generating that traffic. And a lot of times people don't do the pre-work and they just hit publish and there's nobody there to really get it going.
Yes,
right?
I agree. And, we're talking about 0 to 1 in the grander scheme of things, but even 0 to 1 on something like Instagram, right? Creating that initial following, and how do you get people interested pre-product, pre-having a physical product? So,
jumping ahead, you asked a really good question. It's like, if I have $500 to spend on marketing, I think was the question.
It was.
Per month, how would you spend it? And I think that's a really good way to ask a question, because now I've got some numerical context and some boundaries. So first of all, we have to separate the difference between advertising and marketing. Advertising is paid placement. Marketing is everything else. Branding is over all of that, right? Branding is the sole heartbeat of all of your outbound and inbound marketing and advertising. So when I'm first starting out, I'm not going to spend hardly $1 on advertising, paid placement, because unless you know how to run ads on that platform and you have experience running ads on whatever platform. So if you're running ads on Meta, if you're running ads on TikTok, if you're running ads on Google, whatever platform, if you've been doing that and you have learned how to do that, then I'm going to say maybe you're ready for that. But if you haven't, I'm not going to say, let's just go start cold and throw some money there. I'm going to suggest taking that $500 and putting it into UGC in some form or fashion, getting other people to experience and share and talk about your product. That could be in the form of renting a room in your community and hosting an event, having some beer and barbecue.
Yep.
Right? That event, you get photographs, you get social proof, you get the starting to build your community, you get relationships that you couldn't go spend $500 on a Facebook ad to get. Right? So how do you get people to show up to those events, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the question that I kind of alluded to earlier. Like, everywhere I could find an email address, anybody that I'd ever interacted with before, socially, professionally, whatever, I invited them. And most people didn't show up.
Yeah.
Right? But those 100 or so that did was enough for me to get some photography at that event and show connection and show real live humans talking about this problem and interacting with this problem. So like, if you're going to set the go live date, you got to start collecting those email addresses, or call it owned media, long before that, right? You got to start building up a relationship with those people so that when you do hit go live, they are ready to take some action, whether it's like, share, comment, whether it's go on Kickstarter and back the campaign. Like we had koozies for like $2, right? Get a koozie, right? Or you could buy the lot for like $2.79 or something, right? And all we were asking for people to do is to share it on social media. That was the call to action. When they left that meeting, that meetup that night, the call to action was at 8:00 tomorrow morning. We're going to hit go live, and all we're asking is you share it. There'll be a link in your inbox by the time you wake up in the morning. Yeah. Right. And we made it easy for them. We also, I think we wrote the copy for them.
Nice.
And if I think back, going back to how we got featured on TechCrunch, I wrote the copy for John Biggs. Right. So taking those steps, I would not put any that $500. I would not put any into paid media unless you have like consistently put money to work like that. And to be honest, like you're going to be competing with guys like me on CPMs, and we've got teams of ad buyers. Yeah. Right. We'll spend $500 before most people wake up. Right. And you're going to spend $500 a month. Right. You can't outcompete that. Yeah. But I can't outcompete you going out and hosting your own event. Yeah. Right. And that's where I'm going to suggest you spend that $500 in the beginning, and then bake all that around like photography and putting it out on different platforms in your social media. Email is I think understated and underused. Like if somebody's willing to give you their email address, you're almost there to collecting a credit card nowadays. Wow. Yeah. So like I really push building relationship through email, and I have welcome flows of people like of whatever I'm marketing or selling or services, whatever, is a series of welcome flows that last about 6 months that drip certain information to people. And then there's campaigns that I run, updates, news, things that I'm like articles, sharing, kind of value building.
What's your preferred email campaign platform right now?
Klaviyo, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. There's a free version, I think up to like 100 and something users. Any of them, MailChimp, just get one and stick with it. Yeah. And continue to use email, but use it like, so I've recently got on Substack, and I saw someone post on Substack about the differences between like social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all these, especially LinkedIn. It's like the front door facade of your house. Oh yeah, that's a good analogy. Where Substack is more like the living room, where you're really wanting to get a little bit deeper. And that's the way I treat email addresses. Yeah. Like I want to treat, if you gave me your email address, whether it was in person or some sort of collection form, lead gen magnet tool that I use to get your email address, I want to nurture that as much as possible to build a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I can see when you opened it. I can see what you clicked on. I can see like all this data. Right. Right. And those are indicators to telling me I'm doing something right or doing something wrong. And if somebody bounces out, hey, at this point, like bounce out. Like I'm not for you. Totally cool. But definitely put a lot of emphasis on building that owned media list in the beginning state, in all your stages. I mean, like I've got a company now with hundreds of thousands of emails, and I don't ever separate them because I would not take that company email list to try to go build something separate, because I've nurtured that email list so good. Yeah. And if I introduced one friction point or one confusing off-brand topic, it would diminish the value of that. Yeah. Right. Interesting. That's a good point. And you can build one around you, like you as the founder of this business, and putting out those updates shows people that you're committed and you're building traction, you're building momentum, and they may not ever like reach out and until something clicks. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the original question, we've gone on so many good tangents here,
So the original question was around what do you need to have in savings to successfully launch? So in your guys' case, you were working towards a goal of a Kickstarter that would then provide kind of your launch capital, your capital for inventory, your initial customer database, that sort of thing. You've obviously since launched other businesses where you weren't using Kickstarter or a platform like that. So in the case where you're not using, you're not fundraising, right? Whether that's friends and family or going out and doing a pre-seed round or doing, a WeFunder or a Kickstarter or something like that. What is that number? You said engineering alone, you guys spent, or engineering and legal and stuff, you spent roughly $20,000 getting up to the Kickstarter campaign. Setting the Kickstarter aside, how much was spent kind of in that initial inventory, your initial MOQ that you needed to hit?
Oh, that came much later, 5 years later.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
from the time of launching on Kickstarter, we did not have the tooling, the manufacturing. We so much we didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
But what we were able to do with that is we had, I'm going to guess, 300 or 400 people that purchased the product. Mm-hmm. And that was the early stages of proof of success that we could take out to investors and start raising money on and say, hey, look, in 30 days, we raised $116,000 and had 400 people back the project, right? Here's the customer data. Here's the customer persona. Here's how we market it to them. Here's how we scale that, like blah, 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 right? The spend on tooling and manufacturing, it was way higher later on. That came with more and more customer discovery, more and more investment. But at the beginning, like I look back, I look at this company I built called Glory Light, launched it in early 2023. And if I look across what we spent outside of inventory to get that company going, maybe a couple of $1,000, two or three.
Yeah.
You got the
that
legal.
One's also a really unique case, though, right? Because I think we were meeting as you were getting that going. That one is unique in that you had a team, right? Students, maybe.
So I
and a 3D printer and
I mentor students at the Williamson County Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, and I basically, Jeremy Qualls, the director, I came to him and said, hey, I've got this idea for a company. Instead of me mentoring students on their company idea, what if I gave them the idea and I supported it financially from, all things, building out the website, building out the brand, building out the inventory, legal, all that. And he was like, yeah, run with it. Yeah. So basically the students were helping me do stuff they could do from a laptop, right? Helping me find, I had them go through Amazon and find the top 5 competing products, prices, ASINs, how many 5-star reviews they had, like what was the negative comments they had, what was the biggest concerns. So, and they would do that kind of research, right? Stuff you could do from a desktop search. And that helped me go. And then I'm like, hey, go to Alibaba and find the top 5 that meet these criteria from what we saw on Amazon, right? We're looking for these types of features. We're looking for this type of price point. Now help me go through Alibaba search and find 5 or 6 different products that meet these criteria. So they'd go through Alibaba. And then the next week I'd come back. I'd order those products, have them shipped to my house, and I'd start testing them. And I immediately started doing customer discovery. Who are my customers? Kids are going to be the users, and moms and grandmoms, right? So who in my network can I start doing some customer discovery with the, call it C grade product that I got from Alibaba. It was C level, right? It wasn't great, right? And you start to find, well, I don't like it because the packaging looks bad because it came from China. Well, that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
I can redesign the packaging.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something I can easily fix. Let's look at the product. What do you like and what do you not like about the product? Start doing some of these customer discovery things. Then I kind of got a criteria list of, okay, what am I going to need in kind of first gen? Then I go out and really do a manufacturing search something I've done before. Find the factory that could build it. Already had some of the tooling ready to go. We rebranded it, and within 90 days, I mean, we're cash flow positive and have orders fulfilled.
That's awesome.
So the startup cost, we built the Shopify store.
So yeah, let's get real specific, right? So Shopify is roughly how much a month?
I think I pay right now probably $1,000 a month now. Back then, for that brand, let's see, probably a couple $100.
Okay, great. So let's say 200 for the Shopify. You also, I assume, set everything up legally yourself. Is that right?
Yes, I did. Filed the LLC with the FEIN and Secretary of State. Got the Department of Revenue and the city and county tax filings, business tax, sales tax, and F&E tax.
So $200, $300 more?
Your Secretary of State's $300, and you've got maybe 100 in other filings, and then you have an annual report to file.
So let's say $500 annually, and then $200 monthly for Shopify.
We run attentive for SMS marketing. So when you start putting yourself out there to the public, you want to have kind of a funnel capturing system that when you push things out, you're bringing them through your funnel, right? Mm-hmm. And they may not be ready to purchase, but they might be willing to give you an email address in exchange for a kid's coloring book that they download online, right? Mm-hmm. So email collection, I'm running Klaviyo. So I'm paying for Klaviyo. Enter your SMS, enter your phone number, and get a 10% off, or get a launch. Like we would run launch specials. Maybe it's 50% off from a certain date, and that I'm building up pre-orders.
How much are you paying monthly for Klaviyo?
Back then, I think I was on the free version up until we surpassed the minimum threshold. I think it's I'm probably spending $400 or $500, $600 now. But back then, probably $100 a month to get going. Attentive is kind of based upon usage and how many SMSs you're sending. So that let's call that another $50 a month for startups. And let's see what else. What other costs do we have? You
talked about packaging design. That one's always interesting to me.
Okay. I did that on Canva.
You did the packaging design yourself.
Did it all in Canva.
Talk to me more about that, because as a former Casper employee, there was a whole lot of momentum around the unboxing experience, and that's something that's really stuck with me. Like, it was so impactful with our customers to watch them, unbox this mattress. It brought a lot of joy. It brought a lot of viral moments. It brought a lot of celebrity partnerships. Like, there was a lot there. So I'm curious to hear how you think about packaging design. It's another inflection point for me. Again, I've admitted that I'm a perfectionist. It's like, I want every piece of it to be so perfect. And so I'm curious on how you think about something like packaging.
So packaging is important. And I do get what you're saying. Like there's all kinds of case studies around Apple and the unboxing experience and that perfection, like moment where, it reveals this beautiful product sitting like right there. Okay. That is on a scale from 1 to 100. That's 100. Yeah. I'm willing to take a 20 here.
Yeah.
Right. Just to get going.
Get out the door.
And, I'm willing to get a failure grade on packaging if the product is good enough. Yeah. Right. And I think of it not like MVP, minimum viable product. I think more about minimum lovable product. What's good enough in the product to get people to share it, like it, consume it, and buy it again. Mm-hmm. Right. So I felt good enough with that product, that the packaging could, for specifically the Glory Light, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to get thrown away.
So you designed it on Canva yourself. Did you have a template, or you just measured the product or measured the former packaging?
Measured the the former packaging. Yep. And built that into Canva and then sent it off to the manufacturer, and they had to make a few die cut lines and things. And we had to make a few adjustments, PDF'd it and then approved it, and the packaging is done. I didn't pay any kind of die cut on that one. Now, I have had products in the past where I've had custom built packaging with custom die cuts, and you've got some tooling. It's not much tooling for for packaging. It can get expensive, but depending on how many colors and plates you use, color plates, for now, start simple. Like just do a one color process.
Yeah.
Like I know you may want 2 or 3 colors,
right?
But like to keep your cost down, just choose the one color plate.
Keep it simple.
Just keep it simple. Your packaging, all this will say is like everything in your customer experience and your journey flow will continue to get better. And a lot of times I think people like they wait for perfection,
yes.
which will never come.
Yes.
And try to force yourself into shipping something that you're kind of like,
yes. It's that embarrassment factor. I don't know if
this
right?
is like,
yes.
And be careful because you don't want to go and overextend it. We overextended one time on Amazon. We shipped way too early. We had a lot of onboarding and installation hurdles, education that we had to teach people how to do certain things before they did certain things with the product. And people got overwhelmed and couldn't figure it out, and we got a bunch of returns. So depending on the complexity of the product, I'd start earlier than you think. You'll learn a lot, and it'll put you into this like fight or flight mode that's kind of safe. It's almost like a good thing because it now you're like, oh, if I just fix this will solve these other downstream problems.
Yeah.
And then you'll see another little fire. And you're like, oh, I just need to put that fire out and it'll solve these downstream problems. But, Canva package, all things.
How much were you paying for Canva a month? Or was there
There's a free account.
Yeah.
I have a paid account now. It's pretty, I think $30 a month, maybe. One thing I will say, and this is kind of, I think, important. In the ages of AI, go against that grain and go get a really good user experience photography done. I would rather see some really good quality user experience photography of the product. And I have a woman, her name is Evan. She lives down in Franklin. She does all of my consumer photography. She knows how to pull out what I call the transformation that people have by using the product. She's done all my product user photography. And
shout out to Evan.
Shout out to Evan. And I don't even have to now, I don't even really have to explain to her what I'm looking for. I'm like, hey, here's what the product is. Here's what it does. She'll go get the quote unquote models or actors. She'll get the shot set. And then like in Glory Light's case, it was shot in a bedroom because it's a nightlight that kids put by their bed. And, she's just getting that kind of wow factor from the child using the product and a mom with the child, like reading, the Bible or a biblically based book with the light. Now I'm saying like, I don't hire her every single week or every month.
Yeah.
But when I just get started, I need something that I can't get on AI or I can't go get with my iPhone in my daughter's room.
Yeah.
I can, that's okay. And I do have that photography, but that professional photography also sets the stage for what I send out to my affiliates.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want a shot that kind of looks like this.
Yeah.
They're not a professional photographer. They can't quite achieve it, but they can get something pretty close.
Yeah.
So,
what are you looking at financially whenever?
I'm going to spend a good $1,500 on a really good set of user photography. And that's white box photography. You're going to need that for especially if you're setting up an Amazon store, user photography and some product or product feature photography, specifically close-up shots of different features of the product. And the packaging is kind of included in that.
Yeah.
But that usually comes a little bit later once we start seeing first articles come back from the factory or from you can sometimes prototypes. A lot of times people say, well, my MOQs are high. The factory that I've found, they're asking in Glory Light's case, we have a very high MOQ. So how do I kind of get around those MOQs in the early days? I try to do as many pre-orders as possible before I ever place the order into the factory.
And let's talk about pre-orders because I think that's a good point. around generating, it sounds like your background has been in sales. It sounds like you have experience in kind of just generating the excitement that's kind of necessary pre-launch, pre-Kickstarter, or pre-launch in this case for Glory Light. But talk to me about kind of what you are putting out there. It's a little bit easier now with AI, but what are you putting out there before you have a nice quality prototype to kind of be photographing generate interest in pre-sales?
I had this concept called rent the room. Mm-hmm. Go force yourself to either physically or virtually getting people to show up to talk about what you're building or the problem that you're solving. Mm-hmm. You can offer beer and wine. You can offer nothing if you want, but force yourself to get people in that room, whether it's a free webinar or it's a room at the clubhouse in your apartment building or whatever, right? So with Glory Light, we had a launch party. The 6 students that I told you about, we invited all their friends and their parents. Yeah. We invited people from our church, people from our small group to come to this launch party. And what happened was you start getting people in the room before really, at that time I had a really good prototype, but I wasn't yet I had a website that I could collect pre-orders from on Shopify. So we used that as evidence to get pictures and get kind of some social proof around real people building real product. And what happened naturally is like one of the ladies that showed up from our small group, she posted about it on her social media that she attended this event and put a link to our website, and we had like 11 orders.
That's awesome.
And then I take those 11 orders and then I go to my social media and say, holy cow, because we hosted this event and because of Kristen Dennis that posted this, we had 11 orders last night. And then people go, oh, 11 orders. I want to order one too. And then momentum builds momentum.
Yes.
And it's so important, right? So once you get one piece of momentum, leverage it, exploit it, and then use it again. Yes. And then you use it again, and then it just kind of snowballs.
I think that's one of the most important things you've said this morning. I think you've said a lot of really helpful things, but I think that is so true. And I think that both works externally, whether that's, in the realm of marketing and promotion and sales and pre-orders, but also just mentally. I'm really big on the expression of you don't become motivated and then go take action. You take action and the action makes you motivated. Sure. And this is something I have to remind myself of a lot, because you don't always feel that momentum or that motivation whenever you're working on getting your idea from 0 to 1, right? And so I think it's so important that when you do have a win, that you find a way mentally and a marketing standpoint to continue to capitalize on that momentum, because even if you just think of it as kind of like a little car dial, right? Like it's so much easier to go from 1 to 2 than it is to go up to 1 and then back to 0 and then back up to 1 again. So finding ways to capitalize on momentum, both for your mental health and for your marketing channel, I think is so important.
And don't get discouraged when those, like that event, you host that event. Let's say she didn't post and those 11 orders didn't come in. That's not going to stop me from doing the next rep that I have to put out, right? It's just something that happened because of an event that we hosted and created, and now I can leverage it, right?
How do you think about, this is something I ask myself a lot, how do you think about pragmatism? Because I consider myself a pretty pragmatic, logical, practical person, but also combine that with kind of the blind naivete, entrepreneurial optimism mindset, because I think you need both. And sometimes I feel like they're at odds, right? I'm like, well, this didn't work. People must not want this, right? I didn't get those 11 pre-orders. They must not want this. And so totally. I wrestle in my mind a lot with, is this a good idea? And I have to keep pushing forward. And this is natural, natural challenges that you're going to face, or is this a terrible idea and you should go back home and start all over again? I run into that a lot.
Totally. I kind of think of it more like, and I use the word reps. Like I've got to put in the reps to really test this idea. So like right now I'm testing out Substack as an acquisition channel. And I have forced myself for 90 days to post every single day and to create one long form content piece once a week. Like that is, there's no deviation from that.
Yeah.
And I'm also I'm engaging with other people's posts 10 times a day.
Wow.
So 10 engagements, one post a day, and one long form video a week. That is my standard for 90 days. And if I don't, and I'm not seeing I probably have like 286 subscribers or so, and I don't think $1 has come in, not a lead has come in. I've got a couple of likes and a couple of comments, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right. But like forcing yourself to say, I'm going to do this same thing in a repetitive nature will force you to figure out how to pivot your message or pivot the channel in which you're using, the tactic in which you're using, and ultimately decide, okay, maybe that channel isn't for me, but I gave it a good run. Mm-hmm. But if I only posted once or twice or 3 times or even 50 times and I didn't get a result, there's
almost not enough data.
I've said this a bunch of times, and I think Jesse Itzler made me aware of this comment. Do you know what it takes to become the top 60% podcast of all podcasts?
Yeah.
To be in the top 60%, how many times do you have to publish a podcast?
I don't know. Twice, really?
To be in the top 60%.
Wow.
Everybody else does one and goes, holy cow, that was hard and nothing came in from it. I didn't get a result.
Interesting. That's super fascinating.
Right?
Yeah.
So like if you take that alone, like I can be, just by doing reps, I can be in the top 60% by just showing up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it takes. And I'll also say is don't try to go be in every channel. Like I see a lot of times people trying, like, especially I would put you in my generation. We didn't grow up with these tools.
Yeah.
And we most of our experience with these tools, call it Facebook and Instagram, primarily LinkedIn. We know how to use those. We use them pretty much every day, right? But when we try to figure out TikTok, or we try to figure out something else like Substack or Medium or Reddit, it is a learning curve.
Yeah.
Right. So I always try to tell people, like, go with a channel in which you have the most comfort and experience with first.
Good advice.
And if it's Facebook, okay, depending on your business and where you're going, okay, how do I create some momentum using what I know how to use, right? I have a client, his channel was Facebook. He kind of in our demographic, he'd use it a lot, but he's a B2B business selling to architects.
Yeah.
So he started using Facebook groups to talk about how AI could or could not be disrupting the architect industry, and started having meetups about what he was learning and what he was seeing in AI in relationship to his industry. And hundreds of architects were showing up on these webinars. Guess what he's doing? Collecting email addresses.
Yeah.
Building relationships.
Yeah.
He's about to sell them something because he's building something, right?
Right.
So like that was a channel that he used to kind of build some consensus. And at the first, it wasn't really selling. It was like, hey, this trade coming down the tracks and we better talk about it, right? Let's learn from each other. And it's coming whether we like it or not.
Right.
So that was his channel, and yours might be totally different. But like you're going to go set up a TikTok shop and a TikTok channel when you've never even used TikTok.
Right.
You're going to be like in this learning for learning's sake. And it's like, you're going to constantly go, like, you'll be learning without publishing and executing. And that's where there's so much content out there now where I've seen
so much,
like, and some of it's good, like, especially around entrepreneurship, business startups, all that stuff. Some of it's really good, but I see a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in this learning mode and they're not applying what they're learning.
Yeah.
Right. So now when I consume a piece of content, I walk away with like, what is the action that I'm going to take? Like one action. If I watch an hour-long episode of Alex Hormezy, I'm going to like, what am I going to do to my lifetime value? He's got all kind of tactics that he's using, but like, where can I implement that in this business, or where can I implement in that business, and have write it down. That's like a checklist thing that's going to get done this week.
Yeah. Yes.
Instead of just consuming the content and going, okay, now I have some idea around the concept, but until you actually apply it, it's wasted. It's time completely. It's a complete waste of time.
Yeah. I like the idea of reps though. I think that's a great word for it too, right? You wouldn't just go to the gym once and be like, well, I didn't get muscular today. Like, right. I mean, I wish it worked that well. But no, I do like the idea of reps, and I am very much, I love the idea of these kind of, I call them like micro sprints. Like I am very like quarterly goals, like monthly goals, quarterly goals, all that stuff. So I love the idea of like 90 days, I'm doing something, it's black and white. So you've either done it or not, right? You've either commented on 10 and done one long form post a week and written a post every day, or you haven't. Like it's a really easy pass fail. And I really like when I can bucket things into those, because then I feel like, okay, I've got something that I'm tangibly trying. I'm taking my learnings from this. I'm giving it enough time. There's enough data points to discern something from this. So I like that idea of having enough reps.
Another thing is that date that you set, it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
100%. There's no compromise. And you need to voice that to your audience that you're going to do this event on this date.
Yeah.
And your integrity is on the line at that point.
Yeah.
And people they're not watching you like you think they are.
Yes.
Right?
That's another great one. That's another great gem there.
They're not going to know if you did it or not.
Yeah.
In most cases, your integrity will.
Yeah.
Your integrity inside here will know if you let it lapse.
Yeah.
I had the same kind of concept around like doing long distance, like triathlons and runs across the Grand Canyon. I start telling people like, I'm signed up to do this race.
Yeah.
I'm committed to running across the Grand Canyon twice on April 4th or whatever. Right. And then I'm like, in my mind while I'm training, I'm like, oh my God, I told that person I'm going to do that.
Right.
And now I've got to go do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I see oftentimes, people say, oh, I'm going to go run a marathon in context of business.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this event. But then they realize, holy cow, I need a new pair of shoes to run this marathon in.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to train until the new pair of shoes shows up.
Yeah.
No, you need to be out there training with whatever resources you have.
That's a good one,
because you could actually go for a run today with those old pair of shoes.
Yeah.
So people I'm going to launch this business, but my website's not ready, so I'm going to hold back.
Yes.
No, you need to go ahead and do what you said you were going to do today. Put in the rep you were going to do today, knowing that your new shoes are in the mail and your website is in the mail. It's getting fixed. And a lot of times people will wait.
Yes.
And that waiting period is what causes doubt, what causes fear, and what causes I'm like a dog chasing a rabbit, like, oh, a new rabbit to go chase, right? And that's where entrepreneurs get in this like vicious cycle.
Yes, that is completely true. And I think it ties in really well with what we kind of started with, which was this idea of perfectionism, right? Like, and I am so guilty of this. It's like, oh, well, when this is here and this is here and this is here, then that'll be the perfect time. And it's never really the perfect time, right? It's kind of this myth we tell ourselves, but you're right. Instead of just starting with what you have, where you're at, like, you're like, well, when everything lines up perfectly. And I do think it comes down to kind of that fear of failure as well. And, you have this expectation of yourself or what you want to achieve, and working past that, it's better to launch a bad product and keep iterating than not launching at all. And I fall into this trap all the time.
Even go way before the launch. It's like just putting yourself out there that you're going to host a workshop or a webinar to just talk about the problem with people that have the problem, or like somebody might not show up.
Yeah.
And it puts you into this, like, why didn't they show up? What can I do next time? How do I change my offer? How do I change the messaging? Do I change the channel? Like you're just constantly learning so that when you are ready for launch, you've built up some critical mass.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
So what other questions? Like love to keep diving.
Okay, so we were going down the path. We're still on this overarching question around what do you need to have in savings in order to get something launched. So we were talking about Glory Light and we were kind of going through the different pieces and we got on these great tangents. But one of the things you had mentioned was getting onto Alibaba. So I guess a couple questions around that. So first of all, obviously Alibaba charges for samples, typically almost always shipping from China. So talk to me, I guess, about Alibaba. Do you recommend people starting there when they're looking at manufacturing? And then kind of what was your initial investment in samples when you were doing Glory Light?
Yeah. In some cases, I was getting free samples shipped. I just had to pay for shipping. In some cases, I had to pay for the samples. In Glory Light's case, the samples were like $5 to $10, $12.
Oh, wow. Pretty cheap.
So small. And in some cases, the factory just wanted to pursue my business and would ship it to me for free. I kind of can lead through an email address that shows what I've built in the past. So when they see that, they're like, oh, this guy's like launched other products. And they can go and look and see where those products are being sold and go, okay, I'm their ideal customer profile. They'll bend for me a little bit, maybe than they would starting from a Gmail account that you might be reaching out to them from. Okay, I get it, right? So you may have to negotiate or pay for those samples. In that case, try to do as much as you can to get that sample go live ready before they ship it to you, right? What can you do can you do some sample packaging? Can you ultimately you want to take that prototype and immediately start getting some photography and some user feedback from in a public way
from your Alibaba sample.
Yeah. So you want to be able to take that sample to where your customers are, whether it's in person at an event or digitally in some sort of small group, to start getting them to challenge you. Basically, like, hey, I'm going to solve this problem or I'm going to build this product. I got this sample. What do you like and what do you not like about it?
So you might get this, I'll say chintzy or kind of cheap sample from Alibaba. It might be wrong colors or wrong proportions or not function great, but you would take this to your user group and say, like, I want to build something like this in better quality and better form. Let's pick this apart. What do you like? What do you not like? Okay.
And now I would encourage you to record that and publish that and put it out on whatever channel that you're using to show that you're open for that kind of feedback and try to bring other people into, hey, I'm going to do this same thing again, but I'm going to make some iterations based upon what we learned today. And then see if you can grow that audience.
We talked about this a little bit, Clay, maybe last year, maybe a couple of years ago, but I know you have a background in working with partners and with manufacturers. And so I feel like you feel very confident with the sourcing piece of things. For people who don't have a background in sourcing, what path do you recommend? Do you recommend using an Alibaba partner over kind of going out to the market in general? There's Import Yeti, there's different platforms that kind of give a little bit more power to those looking to source. But is that something you invest in typically or would recommend investing in with a third party whenever you don't have that background?
It's a great question. Where do you start? And you got to understand that when you're building a company, a product, you're building what we call enterprise value. And that's ownership of the intellectual property. It's ownership of the tooling and the things that you use to manufacture. Everything else, your customers, your CRM system, how you acquire customers, your cash flow, all that's enterprise value. At the beginning, you kind of have to put the enterprise value piece not on a shelf, but like, I've got to just get to market first because there will not be an enterprise value to build if I don't get to market, right? So like, are you willing to like let go of something temporarily in exchange for getting to the next level of the game? So like, with ordering from China, you're going to have shipping and supply chain issues, constraints of tariffs and duties and all that stuff. It's volatile. It's all across the map, right? My product went from a 3.9% duty to 179% duty between August and today.
Yeah.
And I can go into all kinds of things of how I'm negating this, but at the time, I didn't want to go spend a bunch of money in tooling. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to, first and foremost, a factory in the U.S. would be almost virtually impossible for that kind of product, because in America, the workforce needs to be consistent, and the throughput of the product needs to be consistent. Mm-hmm. So meaning they need to hire a person or 10 people or 50 people to run a production line that's the same every single day, right? They can't set up a line, bring some people in to run it, and then tear down that line because you don't have the demand.
Right.
So in startup land, our demand looks like this, right? It's just all over the map.
Right.
In China, that's easy. Like they can set up lines, they can run production, they can fill them up with people, and then they can tear them right back down. And in 10 days later, they can set it right back up. Mm-hmm. In America, it's not happening. I've built with American factories, and they can do some things that Chinese factories cannot do. If it's really complicated, I would definitely suggest if your product has a lot of complexity, and like with Haven Lock, it was a very complex product. We had injection molding, we had powder coating, we had metal stamping, we had sewing, we had firmware, software, embedded, we had sub-assemblies. Like it was complex, right? There would be no way on earth I could have done that in China at my first go at it. Mm-hmm. I did it in Fairview, Tennessee, 15 minutes from my house, where I could go and meet with the engineers, right? Now, could I take that product to China? Yeah, because I know what questions to ask. I know what to look for. Yeah. That comes with experience. Now, for Glory Light, they make products like night lights like this all the time, all day, every day. So, I'm not going to even try to pursue a product in America, manufacture that in America. Yeah. So, yes, Alibaba or I've used some brokers in the past with boots on the ground in China that
brokers meaning that you hired a third-party person to evaluate the manufacturing landscape, or likely they're already incorporated.
Or I'll say, hey, this is what I'm looking to build. Can you go out and find that for me? And then they do charge, and it's expensive. I'm kind of going through that right now with one of my brokers over there.
Share with us what expensive looks like.
Okay, so kind of behind the scenes, Glory Light is in my opinion, it's a product that really probably cost the manufacturer around $4 to $5 to make, and I'm paying $16. Wow! But there's some branding and there's some marketing and in the packaging. There's some services that I get with that $16, and now I've got to figure out, okay, how do I bring those services here, and I just get the product like at $5, right? Because what I pay on the duty invoice is for $16. It's probably worth $5 or $6. So and that has a broker involved. So I'm paying a broker fee in that. And when you pay the broker fee and you're paying duty on top of the broker fee,
right?
You're paying the duty on an ISF code or a harmonized tariff code, and that's really just $5. But you add in all the other $11 in his services and marketing and other services. Now I'm paying the U.S. government for a $16 product.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
So with the brokers that you've worked with, are they traditionally like it's a percentage or a flat fee per
I don't know
item?
what that, in this case, in this one, I don't know exactly what that fee is. I have some assumptions. I've been ordering, we've ordered 25,000 units, or more. So like I've had enough. We do about an order, 6 pallets every quarter or so, every 5 to 6 months. So I've had enough relationship there, but when I'm first starting out, I'm trying to bring down the MOQ as much as possible. I'm trying to.
And your broker is negotiating the MOQ on your behalf.
In this case, yes. Now, if I'm going direct, I've gone direct to the factories before.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now with another project. I'm going to try to bring down MOQs as much as possible, beef up my projected volumes as much as possible without holding me legally liable to them, and show that like I've done the research, I've done the market planning, I've done the market analysis, I've got the history and traction to do this and launch this in the market, to show them that there is future demand, right? And I'm saying, hey, just for this one time, I need instead of my MOQs to be at 2,000, I need them to be 500.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've got to go kickstart this customer acquisition channel. And until I get something to sell, I can't do 2,000. Will you do 500? Or I'll negotiate and say, how about this? How about I pay you for 500 now? I'll go ahead and order 2,000. You make the 2,000, you store the 1,500, and within 6 months or term that you come up with, you try to dictate the terms, I'll pull down the next 500.
Yeah.
And break it up into chunks. That's worked for me in the past. In some cases, the factory says, no, we're not in the business of storing inventory.
Right.
I get it. Okay, you're not a warehouse. So I have a warehouse in China that is super low cost for me to store. And like we kind of bond it and they'll move it to that warehouse for me, but I don't yet pay for it. And
what
it can't
is your
leave
advice for somebody who's doing this, I guess, for the first time?
Negotiate as much as you can.
I guess the simplest path, right? Is it a manufacturer on Alibaba with the lowest MOQ and the best, I'll say, quality for your
start with samples and then find out all the changes that doing your customer discovery as much as you can change is fix, alter, rebrand, reposition.
And in the case of a nightlight, as an example, there's typically, I don't know if this is the case with Glory Light, but there's typically, I'll say, a plastic piece. When we think of plastic, we typically think of molds, right? Yep. Exactly. So if you want to change the shape of something like that, now you're talking suddenly about a lot of money.
Yep. Correct. So in that kind of, I want to build enterprise value, but I also want to get to market and build something first. I'm willing to forego and use something that they already have the molds for. Now, I have, over time, as I have built this specific product, I wasn't happy with something in the firmware. So I said, I need the firmware changed, right? They can go in and change that firmware for me. That's a little bit less of a barrier than changing out a mold, right? If I get to a point in sales where I'm going, I want to custom design this in a better form factor, then I'll find, am I happy with the factory? Do I feel comfortable with them? Or do I go find another one and then remold, retool, and own them there? And I've done that as well. It's a much longer process, but like to get to market, can you find something close enough?
Yeah.
Right. Or there's ways to mask molds as well, and do some things like if you wanted to emboss your logo in it or something, there's ways to mask the inside of the mold, and you can go to them and say, hey, if I just want to make this little tweak, is there a way that like a low barrier change to the mold or a temporary change, they call them inserts. Can we put in an insert into the mold to accomplish this, to make it more custom to me?
Yeah.
There might be, depending on the product, there might be some flexibility there that won't cost you that much.
Yeah. I want to be cognizant because we're somehow already at the end of time. I've got 1,000 more questions for you, Clay. I hope we get to do this again. But is there anything you really wanted to get out there, I guess, as part of today's session?
I think, you kind of ended on like, it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And like put yourself into like setting that date and holding yourself accountable to it.
Yeah.
And just getting into that constant rhythm. It's like showing up to the gym. Like you mentioned it, like I'm going to force myself to go every day, or I'm going to force myself to go 3 days a week, whatever it is. Right. And you'll start to like learn how to sell better, how to make better offers. and how to convert people.
And I think also thinking about what do those, I was reflecting on as you were talking about. So for you guys, your first kind of, I'll say drop dead date was not launching into the market. It was, we're going to hit go on a Kickstarter campaign. And so I think for me, I'm thinking like, you've got all these variables, what stuff gets delayed on, an ocean shipment, things like that. So it doesn't have to be a launch date, but think about other drop dead dates that keep you working towards it.
It could be things that are building up pin-up demand to a launch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it could be something small like hosting an event in your clubhouse or whatever.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like the idea of reps. That will definitely be something that I take away from our conversation, and continuing to think about getting past that idea of perfectionism too. I think that is such a trap that a lot of really driven people can easily fall into.
Totally.
Yeah.
Stacey, I love the conversation today. Thanks for coming on.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. I hope we get to do it again.
Cool.